Hello guys, welcome to the Wars and Weapons channel. In this video, we're going to talk about the last video. Because in my last video, I said the Battle of Teutoburg changed the course of the entirety of the human history. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about exactly how did it change the course of the entire human history, because it was like only a single battle. So it's actually not that simple. So in my last video, I said that the 3 Roman legions were destroyed. Now, I think I did not mention that the legions that were destroyed were legions 17, 18, and 19. So if we count that, if we think that Rome had only 19 legions, they had a lot more. If we think they had only 19 legions, they had 16 legions left. So this defeat doesn't count as much. So why did it change the course of the entirety of human history? Now, in order to find out how this battle changed it, we have to go back a long time. Welcome to Carrhae, or the battle that the Romans got defeated by the Persians, which is also one of the most important defeats in the Roman Empire history. So basically the Romans go on to hunt Persians, or Parthians. The Persians at the time were named Parthians. So they go on to hunt them. So they set up camp in order to sleep, gain their strength, in order to fight with their maximum energy and strength on their Persian hunt, which the Persian general, Surena, or their Sepahbut, decides that that's not going to happen. He makes some big loud drums, and he and his soldiers go near the camp, and they just start playing these drums all the way until the morning, which the Romans are awake. So the Romans basically had a lack of sleep, which made them weaker than what they were, and the Roman general thought that if this continues for more nights, my legionnaires are going to die of lack of sleep rather than dying in battle. So he decided that this has to stop. So he orders his soldiers to go on their Persian hunt. So they go on and meet the Persians on an open field, because unlike Germania and the most of Europe, the Middle East doesn't have many forests, so they basically have to fight off in a desert. So the forces are basically like this: 40,000 Romans against 10,000 Persians. 10,000 Persians are 9,000 of them are horse archers, and 1,000 of them are cataphracts or heavy cavalry. While the Romans have 40,000 soldiers, and 4,000 of them are cavalry, and 1,000 of them are light infantry, while the rest of them are just their legionnaires. So they go on and face off each other. So the Romans actually do what any man would. They would send their skirmishers and their cavalry in order to kill the Persian horse archers, which the 9,000 Persian horse archers unleash a volley which disintegrates and absolutely eliminates any kind of force that stands in its way. So basically the Romans have no cavalry and no skirmishers now. It's only their legionnaires. So the volley continues towards the legionnaires this time, so they have to form a testudo or a turtle formation, because testudo translates to turtle, so testudo formation basically translates to turtle formation. It's basically a formation where you become like a turtle. Imagine I am a Roman legionnaire, I have a shield which is protecting me, and then I have to sit slightly behind that shield so that it protects the top of my head, and then the legionnaire behind me, he also puts his shield up, and he also goes down so that it fills the gap over here so that no arrows can go through. So you basically become like an impenetrable turtle shell. So this goes on for the legionnaires on your right and your left until it reaches the last one on the right or on the left, which they'll have to put the shield on the direction they're in. If they are on the right, they would put their shield on the right to protect the flanks. If they're on the left, they'll put the shield on the left, which protects their flanks from arrows. So they basically do this formation, which is the one weakness of the testudo formation, is that the cataphracts or the heavy cavalry can engage in them, and the soldiers that are in testudo formation can't actually go through and fight in close quarter combat, because they're holding their shield with both of their hands. Because if you're going to hold 9,000 arrows coming at your shield all at once, you of course have to use both of your hands. Now the idea of horse archer is also pretty impressive, because they are basically the tiger tanks of the Roman history, or like the old times, because like the Persians actually decided that like, what is the biggest weakness of an archer? Of course, it's its low mobility and that it cannot engage in close quarter combat because it can't carry a sword. Like maybe a small knife, but not a big sword. So they cannot defend as effectively in close quarter combat. So the Persians decided, why even engage in close quarter combat when you can just put your archers on a horse and then they can just escape any enemy soldier coming in using their horse and then fire at them using their arrows and bows from afar. So the idea of horse archers are born, and many other Middle Eastern cultures start copying this until this becomes like the most basic unit in the entirety of the Middle Easterns. So in my videos about the Crusades, I also talked about that, and if you have paid attention, most of the armies that the Muslims had were mainly made of horse archers. Anyway, back onto the battle. So as I said, when cataphracts charged, the soldiers in the pseudo formations could not engage. So they would have to break formation, which made them vulnerable to arrows, and when they put their formation back, the cavalry will charge. So they are basically caught in this loop, which they form a pseudo, the cavalry charges, and once they don't, the volleys come. So they have basically two options: die with a volley of arrows or die by cavalry charge. So they basically have no option to survive. So of course this goes on for a long time until the Romans are finally defeated. Now the idea of most of the Romans that Rome is undefeatable, that was basically what they all thought. Because like even if I had an empire that became so strong and so vast so fast, of course I would feel like my empire is undefeatable. So this idea was shattered once. Now in the Battle of Teutoburg, almost 60 years later, this idea was shattered yet again. Basically, the Romans thought that, well, we are not undefeatable. We got defeated by the Germans and by the Persians. So they decided to stop any further conquest and thought that our borders are good. We're not going to go on anywhere else. So basically, they do continue to expand their borders, and sometimes later, because and if you look at the Roman map, on their highest extent, they have captured the German lands until the Rhine River and some of the borders of Britannia, or like the island is named Britannia in the Roman language, or like England. They basically have the southern part of England under their own control. So yeah, they did continue to expand their lands afterwards, but they did not do as great expansions that they would before. Because they thought that the Germans, when united, can do a lot more than we expect. The Huns, of course, they are just basically Germans because they are barbarians, but they are just united before the Germans were. So they're basically far more stronger than the Germans. When we can't defeat the Germans, of course we can never defeat the Huns. And the Persians, they tasted their bitter defeat from the Persians, so they decided that the border of Middle East is uncapturable, we cannot go any further. The border of east of Europe is uncapturable, we cannot go anywhere further. And I don't know why they didn't continue to expand through Africa. I think it was because Numidia was mainly the ally of Rome, and the Romans just didn't want to betray the Numidians and take their lands from them. So basically the Romans, the greatest empire of all time, stopped expanding its borders, which definitely, if they wouldn't have, the Romans would have definitely continued to expand their borders further and further and further, and I might have been speaking Latin right now instead of English. So that's basically how this battle changed the course of history. It crushed the Romans' morale to thinking that Rome is not undefeatable. So that's basically how it changed the way Romans see Rome and the way that their soldiers fight. So they are basically now vulnerable, and they feel vulnerable, which they were vulnerable because after the Roman Empire split in half, the Eastern Rome and Western Rome, the Western Rome was basically the main Roman Empire, and the Eastern Rome was the Byzantine Empire, which they were both defeated. The Byzantine Empire got defeated in the Crusades, and the Western Roman Empire actually got defeated by the Germans and were destroyed. So that's how basically it changed the course of history, because if Rome kept expanding further, as I said, it would take over the entirety of the world, definitely. Anyway, we're extremely close to 100 subscribers, so make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the war bell to be notified of the rest of the wars that will occur on the channel later. Make sure to like the video. I do not know what should the title of my next video be about, so if you have any ideas or want any content on this channel, definitely try putting out some ideas in the comments. Thank you for watching again, and stand by for the next video.